Hi, my name's Kris and this is my studio. In this short video, I'm going to show you how I did this value study using just this pencil. This is a water-soluble graphite pencil, and I'm going to show you how I like to use these to do my value study before I do my watercolor painting. Let's get started. If you've been watching my channel for any time, you know that I often recommend that you do a value study before you do a painting. A value study using a single color of watercolor allows you to really look at your subject and to get a sense for all the values. I like to always use a wide range of values in my paintings, from darkest dark to the lightest light tone that I can see. And you can see here's just a couple examples of value studies I did. It doesn't really matter what color you use, what color of paint. Here I use naphthalene maroon. I thought it would work good with an apple as a subject. And then here I just used a cobalt blue. And so the color doesn't matter as much as just the fact that you're only using a single color. But recently I had an idea that I would try to use, instead of using watercolor paint to do a value study, I thought instead I might try using what's called a water-soluble pencil. This would allow me to draw with a pencil, which would be easier to do my quick study. This is a Faber Castell 4B water-soluble pencil. I think Faber Castell, I've looked at quite a few reviews of water-soluble pencils, and I think these are some of the finest quality that you can get. When you first purchase a pencil like this, you'll often have a tip that looks something like this. However, I prefer to have my pencils sharpened a little differently, and so I've purchased this pencil sharpener. It's easier just to show you what it does rather than try to explain it. Now you can see the different kind of tip. Very long, narrow point. It reveals a greater amount of the graphite, so that way you can draw when you're drawing with the side of the pencil and get a larger mark. And many fine artists and professional drawers who use graphite pencils will usually sharpen their pencil in this way. So I will put a link to this really handy sharpener here by AFMAT, and I just preferred to get a manual one instead of an electric one, and it works great. So often when I'm doing testing out some new supplies and I want to do some value studies, I'll just often do just your basic geometric shapes. I'm going to do a cube here, and again what I'm going to do here, instead of just doing a little contour line drawing, an outline, I'm going to go ahead and, using the side of my newly sharpened pencil, again this is the water soluble pencil by Faber Castell, I'm going to go ahead and shade in my areas, and I'm going to be very conscious of the various values that I want to reproduce. This right side of the cube is going to be the darkest area, the darkest plane, and then I'm going to have a kind of a mid-tone or half-tone area here on the forward-facing plane, and then of course the top plane here will be the lightest, and so I'm not going to shade that in at all. So real quick study of a cube with my water-soluble graphite. Now, because this is water-soluble graphite, I can take water with my brush here. I'm using a silver black velvet, number 8 round. And I can add water to this. The graphite, because it's water-soluble, will begin to blend and really act a lot like watercolor. However, it is graphite. And I like to use my squirrel hair brushes because they're already black and I don't want to stain, permanently damage my other brushes that I have that are lighter in value, lighter colored bristles. So it doesn't really matter that much, but again, I'm going to use my black squirrel hair brushes. Now look, you can see what's happening here. I'm just using my brush with a little bit of water on it, and you can see how dark of a value I get with my, with just adding water to it. The water soluble graphite just, I don't know if I should say it melts. It's not really melting, but it just dissolves. And most of the texture of the brush strokes disappears, and you just get a nice value. Now, some people are under the impression that when you use water-soluble graphite, you can remove all of the graphite with your brush and with water. That's not really the case. As you can see here, I'm trying to lift some of the graphite from the top plane of this cube, and it's pretty hard to get all of the graphite to disappear. So you have to be careful. If you don't want real dark marks, you don't want to draw too darkly with your pencil. There you go, my first value study. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do another shape here. Let's just do a classic sphere. And I really encourage, if you're interested in trying these graphite, water-soluble graphite pencils, that you just get a few. I'll put a link here down below. I do highly recommend this Faber Castell brand. You don't need lots of different weights of pencil. Again, this is a 4B. If you just got a few, maybe 4B, 6B, or 4B and an 8B, something like that, you can control the relative darkness just by how hard you press. So having lots of different pencil weights is, I don't think, really very necessary. Again, and this is really, I'm just doing these types of things for value studies, so I can, before I jump into my final painting, again, I can do a quick study of a subject and get all of the correct values represented. Next, I'm going to go ahead and use my Delgado Squirrel Hair #2 brush. This is a little bit larger brush. I always encourage people to use really the largest brush possible, just to minimize lots of small, needless little strokes. And again, you can see once water's added here, I get a nice dark value. And I went ahead and created the halftones by shading with the graphite. And now, since I've already created those halftones, I can just add the water and maintain those values across the face of the sphere. Now, one thing you can do, if you decide that you want to come back and darken an area, this is kind of neat. You can actually dip your pencil in water and then draw with it. It'll be creating a very dark value, pretty much black, about as dark as you can get. You can also come back into your drawing here that's at this point still wet, and essentially just go ahead and add more graphite to your drawing like this. You could add more detail, and then you can come back with your brush, and if you want to, you can just smooth out those values and really get quite a bit of control over the values in your value study. And using a similar technique, I'm creating the cast shadow. As with most cast shadows, you do want that edge, that outermost edge of the shadow to fade away very soft edge. And so again, you can see I'm able to create a very soft edge with my water-soluble graphite. All right, there you go. There's my second value study of a sphere. And this is a lot of fun. Let's go on now, and I'm going to do another study of an object here in my studio. Okay, I have this book here in my studio, and it's a nice simple shape. I'm going to set that up here like a very simple still life there set up. And I'm going to go ahead and draw this and just show you how you can use your water-soluble pencil to create a little bit more of a complex drawing. I'm going to be careful to not draw too darkly, especially my contour and outlines. Be careful. Again, this is a 4B, so it does put down a pretty strong amount of graphite. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw this in real quick. Again, the whole point here is that this is a way that you can do a quick value study of your subject prior to painting it in watercolor. And I think that's a super valuable exercise that I do almost every time I start a painting. Now my objects, I didn't plan real well. My two objects are overlapping, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. You know what does matter? What matters is that you're drawing, you're painting, you're practicing, you're getting some brush miles in, and that, quite honestly, is the most important thing. So your sketches don't have to be perfect. When you sit down to sketch every day, don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. Just get drawing, get painting, get creating, because that process is so important to getting better. I really think, and I try to do this, you should be drawing. If you really want to get better, you should be drawing and painting every day. If you don't know what to draw and paint, do what I'm doing here. Take something found right in your house, right in your living situation, and just draw and paint that. Don't go out looking for the perfect subject, the perfect landscape, the perfect whatever. Just draw what's right in front of you. And I think that is excellent opportunity for practice, and it's right with you everywhere. Okay, there I've gone ahead and drawn my simple contour. Now again, I'm doing a value study, so now I'm taking my water-soluble pencil and I'm going to go ahead and start to shade in, creating a value study with pencil. So I'm really conscious of the different values in my drawing. I want to go all the way from the darkest values to the lightest that I see. It can be very helpful to squint, because by squinting you remove the details in the drawing and you see just what's important. You simplify. So using the side of my pencil, I'm building up the values in the areas that I see are the darkest. Obviously the binding edge of the book is the darkest. I realize you can't see what I'm drawing here, but I'll provide a reference image that you can take a look at. And this binding edge is the darkest. Even though this is a different color, we have a red here, it's also fairly dark. And so I'm going to do that. It's also a little darker on the lower half of the book binding edge than it is at the top, so we'll darken that a bit. And then I'm going to come here and I see that we're also, the lightest part of the whole book really is this pages, the white of the paper that you can see here. But there's a little bit of shadow being cast by the edge of the book here. by the edge of the hardcover. And so we'll make sure we include that a bit. Okay. And there you go. So I have a value study. Now it looks a little lighter at this point than my other studies, but again, it will darken once I add the water. And really what I'm looking for is a full-scale value study. I want to have from the darkest dark to the lightest light of the subject I want to reproduce here in graphite. So now that I'm happy that I've got a good start here, I'm going to come and get my squirrel hair brush. This is an Oku number 2. And wow, as soon as we add that water, we can just see how dark that value gets, very dark. Now this will only come with practice, you know, being able to gauge how dark your wash will be based on how much graphite you put down. The more you use the pencil, the more you'll get comfortable with making that. However, say you got a little too dark of a value, you can pick this up. At least you have some ability to lift. You can see I'm lifting here. And just like I lift with watercolor, get my brush clean and wet, and then come in and just pick up some of that color if you think it's too dark, okay? Now the color, as you move from one area to the other, the graphite will have a tendency to, just like with watercolor, kind of blend in from one area to the other. That's fine. I really like that look, actually. It's a very watercolory look. And that's why I'm sharing the technique with you, because I think it's a great addition to your watercolor skills to use water-soluble graphite. If you enjoy this video and the topic, leave a comment below, and if you'd like to see more videos with the graphite, just let me know. If you have questions about how this works and all, then please go ahead and leave your questions there. Happy to answer them. I always try to get back to people with their questions as soon as possible, usually within the day. Alrighty, there you go. And I want a variety of values here on the top. It's not just one solid value, so you can see it's a little lighter here in the center, a little bit of a highlight, and then that. Really like this look. I really like it. Now, I had the edge here is quite dark, where the edge of this blue book cover is visible there. And you can see just by adding that water how that just really darkens. Really nice. And again, this is now the white paper, so it's probably the lightest part in the entire subject. So want to not have this get very dark. In fact, it might be helpful if I leave the white of the paper in here a little bit. But there is a little bit of cast shadow underneath the edge of that book. And so it looks like that. Now I can come back again and say, well, I think I need to soften this a little bit. Maybe the hard edge is a little too hard. So I can come back and soften that a little bit. Just like with watercolor, there are a lot of similarities. There are differences. It's not exactly the same as watercolor, but there are similarities. Now, again, I said earlier, I can take my brush, I could dip it in water, and apply a bit more graphite here and darken, but I can also do this. This is kind of a fun technique. You can take your brush, you can actually dab it on the graphite tip, lifting off some graphite, and see how I can now come in and put in a really dark line here. So you're basically taking some of the graphite off the pencil. Now it's even more like watercolor because you're using some pigment off the end of the pencil and applying it just like paint. So again, I'll do that again. have my pencil here, and I'm just grabbing some of the graphite off the tip of the pencil and painting with it. So again, that was just for that detail area there, where there's a real dark shadow there along where the book hits the tabletop. Okay, now I'm going to take my water and just draw out a nice blurry edge there. This cast shadow comes away from the book like that. There you go. A finished value study of a book done entirely with water soluble graphite, a Faber Castell 4B pencil. Again, links to all of the materials I used today will be included in the description below. I am painting, I forgot to mention that, but I'm painting on Fabriano Artistico 140-pound cold press. There's a little bit of texture to the paper. Let's go ahead and take a nice close-up look of these paintings. I love the painterly quality of the drawings. I don't really know, do I call it a drawing or do I call it a painting? I don't know. It's both. Started out as a drawing, and then with the addition of water, the graphite dissolves and blends and really looks now very much like watercolor. You can see the texture there that's created by the pencil, and I think a really nice result. Hope you enjoyed this video. If so, consider subscribing. I try to put out a video about once a week. It's been about a month since my last video, so sorry about that, but been very busy this summer. But I'm trying to get out more videos, so if you're interested in this kind of content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and I'd love to see you at the next video. Thanks, and have a great day.